Good evening, everyone. Welcome to World Cybersecurity Forum session on role of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity. My name is Megha Ahuja, and I am a practicing advocate at the Supreme Court of India and also the program head of Department of Cyber Affairs at World Cybersecurity Forum. And I will be serving as your moderator today. This session has been organized by World Cybersecurity Forum as a part of our short awareness course on cyber domain. World Cybersecurity Forum is a globally prestigious cyber consultancy and web community that tends to create awareness in regard to various internet issues and goes as a wellspring of techno-legal information for professionals, students, teenagers, middle-aged civilians around the globe. As a dedicated cybersecurity platform, WCSF has been catering unbiased information to professionals on the countless security challenges that they come across every day. As the technology is evolving rapidly, so the humans are. And during this expedition, all are facing a lot of obstacles in all senses. Artificial intelligence in cybersecurity is beneficial because it improves how security experts analyze, study, and understand cybercrime. It can also serve as a new weapon in the new weapon for the cyber criminals who use the technology to hone and improve their cyber attacks. That is why we have called Mr. Bhatnagar for addressing this very timely issue. And at today's session, we will be discussing role of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity. Talking about the speaker, Mr. Bhatnagar is the founder of Alpha AI, which is a UK and India-based artificial intelligence consulting, research and development company. He has obtained his master's in computer science from University of Bristol, United Kingdom. He is specialized in artificial intelligence and a serial entrepreneur with multiple ventures under his belt. He is actively involved in mentoring startups and AI enthusiasts, as well as consulting businesses. He is a pantometh at heart and has been featured as one of the emerging young talents, young entrepreneurs, and excellence in the field of AI in England as well as in India. Now, without any further delay, I would like to call Mr. Tushar Bhatnagar to take this session forward. Thank you all. Mr. Bhatnagar, can you please join me?
Sure. Thank you, Megha, for the brief introduction. It's been an honor to be on the platform and deliver a short session over how AI would be influencing the cybersecurity domain in the coming time. So within a minute's time, I'll start taking you across the journey as to why artificial intelligence, what is the threat landscape across cybersecurity, and different aspects of threats that are quite prominent these days. At the same time, where all AI is being used at the moment in terms of how we are actually countering those risks or avoiding those threats, and how AI can actually be used in the future in order to develop maybe a process or develop a system which can automatically start doing doing the act of threat prevention and detection both at the same time. So I'll also take you through the idea that where AI is beneficial, and I'll also assist people in understanding that everybody might be assuming that AI is there to take their jobs. No, that's not going to happen. So all the cybersecurity practitioners and enthusiasts are pretty much safe, right? So that being said, towards the end, I'll be concluding by sharing a case study. And that case study is from my own one of the projects that we've developed internally at my venture. So it's just a brief, but I'll tell you the extent to which AI can be used for developing certain products within this space. So just give me a moment. I'll be sharing my screen and I'll just take you through the process.
Sure, Mr. Bhatnagar.
So could you let me know if you're able to see the screen?
Yes, we are able to see the screen.
Perfect. Give me a second. It's just loading, so just bear with me just a few seconds.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so Megha has already given you a brief idea about my background, but at the same time, this is an internal tool that we developed for designing virtual agents that are going to be used in the video production industry. It's one of my other ventures, and the research had been done at Alpha AI. So just hear it out in case you feel it's kind of intuitive and lucrative. Is it audible though?
Uh,
Just a sec.
Hi
Yeah.
everyone. I am a mere virtual presence. A brief background about my creator. His relationship with technology started way before he could comprehend the word technology. Being a curious child, his passion was always into breaking and rebuilding things. He never had a goal of becoming an entrepreneur or running a business. What he had as his goal was to create an impact. He always liked to call himself an innovator over a researcher because of his thought process. Research is the backbone behind any new technology, and it really is the reflection of our needs. But if we only research, I believe we would only be able to fill our minds, not accomplish our vision. His vision is simply to take the research we do at Alpha AI to the masses. He believes that his vision can only echo by tapping different industries globally. As mentioned earlier, his drive to start his venture largely came from his hunger to grow. He always says that to grow one must try faster, fail harder, and create. This is fairly what all our teammates have done until now.
So, friends, this was one of the examples of the extent to which AI is being leveraged in the industry these days. It's really hard to detect, the deep fakes from the originals, and how media could be manipulated that easily, designed using such systems. So I purposely designed this demo, like a small brief, using this tool, and it is in a crude form, so that you guys can understand that okay, this is how the fake synthetic media looks like. So it is in its crude form right now, but if you really are interested to see the full-fledged version of how it really might look like, so do follow us on different social media platforms, and definitely you'll come across really exciting and intuitive samples around this technology. So that being said, and taking this particular instance further, so what really is artificial intelligence? So in general, it is simply how systems can be designed, which could somewhat simulate how a human mind thinks. So the whole idea behind artificial intelligence is to design a system that can replicate a human process. And these days, research is going on that can a system can a system be designed that replicates human behavior and mind. So rather than a process, going deeper into the thought process, like how do humans even think? Can the machines go on about thinking? So that is the trending research, and that is one of the hot topics even in cybersecurity. So I'm not going that deeper into it, but as of now, I'm just going to tell you the basics on how artificial intelligence, in its core, is being applied to various scenarios across the cyberspace. Okay, so in general, as you can see in the notes itself, so artificial intelligence really works by ingesting large amounts of data, which also has to be, processed or cleaned in a way so that the machines can understand that. So over here, you can understand one drawback of the technology itself, that a lot of manual labor is required in order to make the machines understand data. So, off the shelf, if somebody says, okay, I've designed an AI system, you probably use it within your infrastructure or an organization. It's highly possible that it might not even work, because it is not accustomed to the data that might it is not accustomed to the data that might be coming within the organization. So this is one of the drawbacks. So going forward, going forward, here are the advantages and disadvantages of artificial intelligence. So let's just discuss the disadvantages first, because many of you might be, keen to understand what are the drawbacks first. So first of all, it's extremely expensive. Not everybody can design an AI-driven solution on their desktops or laptops, or just off the shelf. They cannot do it. At the same time, it requires highly technical expertise around how you're supposed to design the process for the AI. For example, if somebody wants to design a solution for and reading the logs of a system, so somebody who has expertise in that at the same time has expertise in designing AI-driven solutions, that is the likely role that will be required to be designing that particular solution for reading just the logs. So a lot of high technical expertise is required. So in other words, at the same time, there's a very limited supply of such individuals. So that's the biggest flaw that is in the industry at the moment. And at the same time, as I previously mentioned, AI only can interpret or make predictions based on the data it has been shown. So that is another one of the major disadvantages, that it can only interpret things that it knows about. If something else comes into the picture, or if it's something new or vague, so it will be really hard for it to understand that. At the same time, there is no one model fits all mechanism out there in the world at the moment. So for example, if you want to design something for reading the logs, so that's one particular AI solution. If you want to design something that reads how the network traffic is being traversed, or what kind of data is traveling across the network, that is another model that does that. So there is no one generic solution that might fit all the viable scenarios. So that is another disadvantages. But at the same time, there's a lot of research in the industry that is trying to merge these models together and trying to come up with a solution. You can call it to be a broad solution, that is like one model serves all. So that is the one of the emerging aspects within this space. So now when it comes to the advantages, so as you can really see across the slides too, that like as the AI is being shown specific set of data, it will be easy for AI to give highly accurate results within that segment. So if I taught my AI to read logs to understand how data is being transferred through the network, or if it's emails, or if it's some spam mails that are coming in. But I've taught my AI to identify spam emails, and I've taught my AI to identify false data passing through my network. At the same time, I've taught my AI that once there are some anomalies within the logs, so come up with a solution around it. So if I've taught my AI these specific tasks, then it will be highly accurate, and it could even surpass a human at it could even surpass the human on those particular tasks. So that's quite probable, given that it has been fed that specific set of information. At the same time, given that it's highly specific to the task, it will be reducing the turnaround time. So for example, if there's if there's a corpus of around a million rows within the log file within the system, so whether if a human is doing it, he might really end up taking 24 to 48 hours. And at the same time, if the AI does it, it can probably wind up the whole process within minutes. And by minutes, I mean it could even take 1 minute or even 2 to 3 minutes. So that is the turnaround time that the AI has. And once it's been generalized over a particular task, as suggested earlier, it will be giving out consistent results. So it's not that you need to hire, like for example, if you hire an individual, like if you hire 3 individuals, ask them to perform a particular task, all of them might have diverse results. But if you actually use an AI service to do a particular task again and again, it might have consistent results. And by consistent, I mean it's possible it might be learning over time. depending on the type of AI system that has been designed. But at the same time, it will continuously give the similar results. And as we already know that, even if it's a call center or in any customer support that is needed, so the AI power systems are readily available 24/7. So that is one area where things would generally be hit in terms of working professionals or specialization across that. And at the same time, AI is also highly reactive. That is, once it has learned over the specific tasks, if humans are asked to identify certain patterns within data or identify certain patterns within the whole process or the devices, the AI will anyways far supersede that particular individual, because it is highly reactive to smaller changes. So even if there's a small deviation and we need to identify anomalies, AI is going to be the better choice over a human to do that. So those are one of this is one of the good advantages of AI within the space. So now when it comes to cybersecurity, so in general, what do you comprehend by cybersecurity? So cybersecurity is simply the protection of computer systems and networks from information disclosure, and to prevent theft or any risk due to hardware damage, or if there's any electronic data corruption or so on. So cybersecurity is just an area in order to protect systems from all these service disruptions and misdirections that might arise. So this is just a layman definition of what cybersecurity is. So now we come to the part where we are talking about AI within the cyberspace. So where all is it being used at the moment? So this is just a brief. So just give me a second. Yeah. So AI-based security solutions can literally provide up-to-date knowledge of how global risks are being evaluated. At the same time, how do you prioritize different threats? Because all the threats that are there in the world at the moment that have been recognized, it's not that all of them are treated with the same priority. So AI can actually be leveraged in this place to identify what all threats should be prioritized, and what all countermeasures are out there in the world that can be deployed in order to minimize the threat, at the same time avoid risk. Right. At the same time, as we speak, AI is still being trained across organizations on a lot of data that can include data across blogs, all the white papers that might have been published around newly recognized threats and vulnerabilities. At the same time, different news stories regarding, for example, if there was something around ransomware or some malware data, etc. So the AI is being taught to identify such patterns and identify such speech, and it will keep learning on top of it, that what exactly is it supposed to identify and recognize. So AI is also being leveraged in that direction to identify what are the new prospective threats that might arise, what are the new vulnerabilities, what are the areas that the customers are saying that there seems to be a bug in the system that I'm trying to install a particular software, it says it cannot do so, some library is missing, etc., etc. Whenever it says that some libraries are missing, you can explicitly identify that my computer, for example, my device is at risk. In many of the times you go to a website or you try to download a software, it says it's not compatible, or you have particular libraries missing, you need to install drivers yet again. So it is all there to identify risk, right? But that again happens as a manual process. You are installing a particular software, that is when you're triggered with an alert that these things are missing, or this is how you need to cope up with it, or this is how you install fresh software in order to minimize your threat or risk. And at the same time, if you have some antivirus softwares, those are just automated processes which run on a timely basis. For example, every 2 hours or 1 minute or 2 minutes, it's just going to check if there is any anomalous behavior or change in the system settings, or based on whatever permissions the software has been given, it will keep identifying things. So yes, antivirus systems are intelligent enough, but again, AI is being leveraged on top of those to further keep learning based on the upcoming threats, and how it will keep learning the system configuration also. For example, if today I installed any antivirus software, for example, Avast or McAfee or Kaspersky or whatever it is. So even if I install it at the moment, it's going to say, let me download a huge corpus of data. So what exactly it's doing it? It's not downloading some data dumps. It's actually downloading the anomalies. So once it downloads all the anomalies, it's cross-verifying it with your system settings and your system configuration, whether the similar anomaly has been identified or not. And accordingly, it's going to alert the user. And if you give it the administrative privileges that you can keep running it in the background, and you give it some elevated privileges that the antivirus or the network protection system, it can automatically run behind the scenes and do whatever threat prevention and detection has to be done. So the AI within those systems will take over, and it will keep looking for anomalies and try to help you with the risk avoidance. So this is where the AI comes into the picture. And now we're going to go a bit deeper into it. So prior to going deeper, we just need to identify what is the threat landscape. So threat landscape is nothing much but a collection or say a corpus of information which contains all the events, all the events, all the data, all the information regarding where all what all risks are there that can exist, what all threats exist in the world, or what all vulnerable assets are publicly being affected, and what are the observed and trending threats around the world. So threat landscape is nothing but a generalized concept wherein all this information exists, and it is also a changing landscape because every day there's a new not even every day, like every hour or so, there is a new technology product in the market. So in the first or the second slide that I just showed you guys, you could actually see the concept of deep fakes. So it's really hard for AI systems to identify deep fakes at the moment, given the given the complexity of how those are designed and where all those are being used. Like I could just give you an example that during the time when Trump was the president of America, like it came to light that Trump has been actually claiming claiming some false information and providing some misguidance, etc. Whereas he wasn't doing that. So what really happened is there was a deep fake created using using Trump as a reference himself. So that deep fake actually went ahead across social media, and it kept saying that racially we are going to do this, we are going to use our armed forces for this purpose, etc., etc. It was immediately taken down, and that is exactly when it started popping out in the cyber landscape that this thing has started happening. So across Europe and in the even in the America and in the side of America, it has come into it has come into the limelight that there has to be rules around how AI can be used and where all it can be used. So people are still working on policies around the same, and people like us, like working on AI research, are really supposed to be in line with that policy, because definitely we don't want to be infringing any privacy and get into the legal side of all these things, right? So now we'll be discussing the type of cyber attacks and how AI can be used across those areas. So first one is simply malware. So I just want you to have a brief idea about all these things, so I'm not getting deeper into it, because I am not sure about the kind of audience we have here. So some of you might have technical knowledge, some of you might not. So just for the brief and intuitive idea into it. So here are 6 components of what malware comprises of. that is ransomware, spyware, adware, worms, trojans, and botnets. And all of them are, pretty much self-explanatory. So in ransomware, like it was there in the news sometime back that your system got in, like your system is being compromised. You are not able to access your system. You're not able to access user settings or anything. It keeps on showing that. It keeps on showing you that unless you pay this much of money in terms of bitcoins or cryptocurrency, unless you pay that money, we're not going to let go of your system. So some of the very prominent leaders in the world and some of the famous personalities really faced this ransomware issue. Some of them actually did pay that money, and that is how it came to the light that we have paid this money, but how do we identify such issues and so on. So ransomware came into the market, more like overnight. People knew that something like this might exist. People might get into this, but it just happened out of the blue. So that is the extent to which ransomware is used. And right now, soon after that incident happened, all the operating systems, be it Chrome OS, be it Ubuntu, be it Windows or Mac, all of them have started devising some countermeasures within the system itself, which avoids ransomware. So if your system really says that, please enable security policies or services, etc., please go ahead and do it. It's only for your benefit. At the same time, spyware is pretty much simple that, okay, so probably a day or two back, there was a news regarding the tool called Pegasus being used. Pegasus is somewhat like a malware. At the same time, it also leverages AI on how to go ahead and understand user behavior. Okay, so given that you've heard about Pegasus, it's easy for you to comprehend and understand all the different threats and cyber attacks that I'm mentioning here. So in adware, you're already aware that the annoying ads that keep popping up on the browser. At the same time, some of you might also be using ad blocker for the same, that you do not want to view ads every now and then. So ad blockers are there for the same reason. And worms is something like if you use your USB, like if you're using a USB drive, you insert it somewhere and you have weird shortcuts coming in at the same time. It could also have some illicit content just coming out of the blue within the the folder space. So that is one of the form of worms. And Trojan is something really interesting. Interesting in the sense, it's quite possible that you might download an image just by a random Google search. Like you might just download a picture of a car. For example, you might download a picture of a celebrity, and as soon as you download that picture and you click on it and just want to view it within your system, so as soon as you click on that, that is when the whole malware, like the spyware and all worms, get installed within your system. Right, so Trojans are pretty much common, and it happens almost every day. So it is something you cannot avoid, but the systems are continuously learning. The antivirus systems are learning, and almost every second there is a new update around how Trojans can be detected and how Trojans can be avoided being installed within the system. And botnet is something. Botnet is something really complex. It's not. It's not really an easy task for a regular cybersecurity enthusiast to just jump in and just say, I'll probably be making a botnet or so on. It really takes a lot of technical expertise, because installing a botnet within somebody's system is like controlling it remotely without that person even getting an idea about it. So installing a botnet implies you're going to open all the secure ports of the system. You're going to enable your access through the network's firewall. You'll be accessing users' resources within the system. That means you'll be accessing users' RAM, you'll be accessing his processor and whatnot. So developing a botnet is complex, but that's also quite prominent. And this also came into light around 3 to 4 years back when, I'm not sure if some of you are aware about the anonymous community. So they usually work on the botnet concept. So what they really do is design a particular botnet software, and you won't even realize that it's within your system because they're going to make it publicly available. So images on Twitter, some images on Facebook, or some relevant data even on Google, or some relevant data even on Wikipedia. So all of it could be infected using trojans and worms and so on. And as soon as you install those or download the content or whatever you try, the botnets would be installed within your system, creating a back channel for those hackers. And that is how they get remote access of your system. And that is how a DDoS happens. So DDoS is called as distributed denial of service. That generally happens leveraging botnets. An anonymous group is pretty much famous for doing that. So how do you really stop malware? So I'm just giving you an idea about how to go about this as well, because it's common and we should make it a habit that we go about doing these things. Like majority of us do not even update our systems, wondering that it takes a lot of space, or it makes my PC slow and so on. It doesn't. Updating a system is not going to make it slow. Yes, the updates can be a bit buggy, but restarting your system soon after that, or shutting it down, restarting it, it might just work, it might just clear out a few things, right? So first of all, if you feel that certain links or advertisements could be avoided even while clicking, then please do that. At the same time, if you're opening a URL, just see whether that URL makes sense or not. Like if you feel that going at that URL, you feel like you're not connecting with it, better avoid it. There's no point going through it. At the same time, whenever your network is being installed, or whenever your browser is updated, it might give you a prompt that you need to update your firewall settings, etc. Please go ahead and do that. It is only because even browsers these days are optimized to prevent the attack of botnets, trojans, and different worms across the network. So even browsers are prepped that way. So please go ahead and do that. At the same time, whenever you receive any updates for your systems, ensure you do that on a regular basis. So next up is phishing, and phishing is the most common cyber attack that happens. And as you can see within the diagram itself, it like if you go from process like step 1 until step 4, you can actually see how it really happens. So first is that you're going to receive an anonymous mail, or it could also be a forged mail or a directed mail from an attacker leveraging your source or maybe a reliable source, and the attacker sends that genuine mail to you. It's quite possible at times. That kind of a mail is sent to the user. In the scenario of the example, the employee. Okay, so the mail is sent there, and what the employee does is, again, the mistake that we addressed earlier. He is simply going to accept it, click on it, or do some action on it. Like the user is going to act on it, and as soon as a person does that, the whole malicious data, or the trojans, the worms, whatever it is, it gets set up within the browser or your or the user's local system. And once that happens, the attacker can start snooping on the traffic that is transferred from the user. Okay, so for example, I'll just take an example of this forum forum, because every one of us can align along with that. So for example, the management sent me a mail. Okay, and if there is an attacker in place also, so the attacker has already got access to the management's mails and attachments. So I received the mail from them regarding the session. Okay, so I clicked on the link, but what really happened instead is, instead of going directly to the application, like right now, I'm accessing an application to give the session. So prior to even accessing the application, the malicious code is installed on my system, and what I'm viewing on the front is a false application. So what it does is it's going to get access to whatever I type in. So I typed in my username, my password, I typed in my email address. So everything gets transmitted to the attacker, and that is when the attacker is going to hit refresh for me. And as soon as it refreshes, it's going to insert the same information within the genuine application as well. That is why people generally know. People generally do not get to know when their data is being phished. So that is how phishing happens. So I really would favor you guys going through this content on how to avoid phishing. So it is pretty much simple that you need to identify how phishing can happen within your organization, and how you can identify such vulnerable areas, like what kind of information do you pass on to your peers or your faculty for that matter, or your employees, or even your near dear ones. What kind of information are you sending them, and then what medium are you using to send those? So that is that. We need to identify that. At the same time, in the email clients also these days, you can see that Gmail also says that do you want to classify this email as spam or not. So it's not that you're manually doing something. You're also helping Gmail to understand that the email that you received is supposedly something that is unwanted. So it will. What Google does is it's going to identify what you did, and from that it will teach its AI system, like the spam filtering system, to interpret that the incoming mail or the message, whatever it is spam or not. So that is how, like if somebody is using Android, using an Android phone, you can actually see that within the messages app, you can actually see it starts blocking some messages. So those are spam messages that come to you. For example, some advertisements, etc. So the Android devices developed obviously by Google, so they all know that some messages could have some malware within those within it. At the same time, if you receive certain mails, then the browser would already know how to filter it and so on. So if possible, whenever you encounter such mails and you know it's already a spam, do classify it as spam, and let the browsers know. At the same time, within your system, if it says that if it's an unidentified application, the system was not allowed to run it, or do you still want to run it, etc. So at least do your due diligence and try to see whether it's important or not, and accordingly proceed. And using an antivirus is what people recommend. Okay, so in my opinion, it's literally your call. All the systems these days, including Microsoft, Apple devices, and so on. Sorry, all the laptops that use Windows product, Microsoft products, and Apple products, and so on. So all of them have inbuilt, threat prevention and detection suite installed within them. But it's always advisable to use antivirus. But it's again your call, open-ended. And again, if you're somebody from within an organization, and for example, some of you might be a faculty working somewhere, or some of you might be employees within an organization. So it's best to get in touch with your IT team, maybe to understand like what kind of policies are in place to take into account when the passwords within the system have to expire, or when do you really need to change it, and what kind of complexity do the passwords need to have, or is there a tool that they are leveraging which can anonymize all your data from one end, and can encrypt it and send it to the other. So these days a lot of policies are being made and changed, and custom policies are also being developed in-house in different companies, wherein they're actually looking into how you can start encrypting even the encrypted passwords. Like for example, if you're writing a password, it is encrypted in some form by the software provider, but at the same time, the data that is being transmitted, that also is further being encrypted. So these are the kind of change in policies that are being applied. At the same time, organizations are building custom web filters and spam filters and so on to identify what kind of data is permitted within the organization and whatnot. So all these organizations are yet again leveraging AI, and within AI they are leveraging data science and how to design such systems which can do it. So this slide is just an intuition into how AI is being used to do phishing, right? So there's a concept called smart phishing, and that is how it will identify a particular user and gauge its behavior and accordingly accordingly perform or make the user go through a certain process that can further uh, give the attacker the access to users information. For example, if we are sitting on the session, right? So for example, if there's an attacker, he wants to fetch my information. So what he simply has to do is leverage this channel, come into my system, and what the AI, like he's deployed a small AI snippet within my system. So what is it actually going to do? It's actually going to read about what I do, understand what I do. For example, my digital footprints, my browser history, the kind of documents I have, and so on. It's not going to do anything cumbersome. I'm not even going to know about it. That is the extent to which AI is being used. So the AI will devise patterns and will understand what kind of an individual I am, and uh, based on that, it will subject me to different cases. For example, if I open Facebook, so am I even an avid Facebook user? So based on that, it will subject me to a Facebook-based phishing mechanism. If I am more towards using YouTube or Instagram on my browser, so the AI will subject me to that kind of an environment. So that is the intelligence of the AI system in order to comprehend that what kind of a user it is and how we can manipulate the user into giving the AI system my data. And like there's another variant of phishing, and that is spear phishing. And in spear phishing, it is nothing more than an AI system or an intelligent system impersonating you. For example, initially I just showed you a video with sort of my face talking about some things, right? So I can actually so we internally, as well as there's some research going on in the AI community, that we are actually developing impersonators even for Zoom sessions, even for Google Meet. So what the AI really does is it's going to learn how I talk. It's going to learn how I interact and express myself. It is going to learn how I speak. At the same time, it's going to learn how I write content. So as and when there are calls scheduled, or if there's any video sessions going on, etc., I can actually deploy my AI system, and I do not even need to be present on the calls. The AI will itself be a part of the calls, and at the same time, it can also interact, fetch confidential information, and even extract it. So it's quite possible, like within the course of time, that we might come to hear about one of the instances wherein the user wasn't even at his work desk, and the AI actually attended the call, and there was some corporate espionage happening using that AI. The person really responsible for giving out the data was impersonated, and the data got stolen. That's one of the things I'm expecting to see in the future, given the AI landscape. So next comes to password attacks. So there are just three major variants. And that is, first is brute force. It's pretty much slow, and almost every newbie hacker or a new person within the ethical hacking space leverages this. And it is simply by using a variety of patterns that also a large variety of alphanumeric patterns. So that is, if you come to think of it mathematically, so it implies using alphabets from A to Z. That also, lowercase and uppercase. Then also leveraging all the numbers from 0 to 9, and at the same time also looking into the different buttons that are available on your keyboards. So all the slashes, plus minus, tilde sign, exclamation mark, at the rate, and so on. All the special characters are also a part of it. So you can imagine the different combinations that might be available. So roughly those might be in millions. So that is why it's a slow process, but this is something doable for everybody. Okay. Dictionary attack is something really smarter. So at the moment, in the current scenario, if you say that your Facebook has been hacked or your Instagram has been hacked or so on, you're not being subjected by you're not you're not a victim by victim of any uh, a newbie hacker. Some professional was behind the scenes for it, because what they did is they tried to come into your system, or your device. They understood what kind of a user you are. They tried to come up with some common psychological patterns or common words, and based on that, they have prioritized a word list, which further is being used. Uh, Further is being used to get access to your systems. And towards the end, it is keylogging, and keylogging probably happens everywhere, and all of us already know about it. Whenever your systems prompt you that, even while setting up your system, somebody bought a new Microsoft Windows device, right? So as soon as you're setting up Windows, what is it going to say? Do you want to send some diagnostic information to Microsoft? If you've installed Chrome, it's going to say, have you sent any, do you want to send any diagnostic data and such information for further improvements, or sharing some diagnostic data across to Google. So as and when you just select OK, or you agree to the terms, all your digital activity is being mapped. The way you click on your devices, what you're typing, etc., everything is being mapped and shared with the respective sources. So keylogging happens since the inception of all these devices. So distributed denial of service is something similar what I mentioned earlier. So that is, many machines are involved. All of them are all of them somewhat lie in the category of botnets. How botnets are being leveraged to perform such attacks. So in the picture, I believe you guys can see that it shows these are the compromised bots. So it gets remote access of all these systems. Then what really happens is, let's just take an example of Facebook. So if the hacker has access to one of the service providers, okay, so let's break it down even further. Let's take an example of a hostel. Okay, so if you're in a university or college, and within your hostel, there are 400 rooms, so that means you have 400 users. All of them are connected to a router, which also might be connected to a server. Okay, so all of you, for example, this COVID scenario came into picture. All of you were in your respective rooms, and you were supposed to give some online exam, or all of you are trying to browse something. So so if there is an attacker in the picture and he wants access to all 400 devices, or if he wants to compromise a particular website, for example, if within your university there is Mr. X, who's a very crazy individual and cyber enthusiast, in a way that he wants to hack around things and so on and so forth. So what he will actually do is get access to all those 400 machines. So he will get to the router and the server, and he will control the traffic. So what he will try to do is, within the university system, he will install malware, which unfortunately all 400 of you, the students staying there, will install within your systems, giving access to him. So he'll be having remote access to your devices. So what happens next is, at any time during the day when he feels that all 400 devices are live, and he feels that it's the right time to probably attack the university machines or whatever. So if there's a server within the university which hosts the university website, so simply what he can do is, rather than one person going on the website and searching for example, XYZ university, he can make 400 requests at the same instant, and he can replicate that behavior at every second. So every second there are 400 requests, and if he is leveraging AI, he can further increase it by 1,000-fold also by designing some small custom bots. So one particular server will be will be getting hits by maybe around 1,000 devices. So that is what the attacker would do, and the small server within the university won't be able to accommodate all the requests, and it will just crash. So that is what distributed denial of service is. I just gave you an example of how it might happen. So here are certain processes on how you could mitigate DDoS. Majority of you might not even be relating to it, but it's best to understand that. I'm not sure if it's clear, but I'll just go through it. So there are four stages, that is detection, diversion of data, filtering content, and network analysis. So in detection, what really happens is all the smart systems or antiviruses or the policies that have been designed, they will detect how the traffic is flowing across the uh, internet within that particular space. So for example, if my also website is hosted somewhere, so the policies of the server will keep identifying that what is the actual traffic that comes to the website. Is there any pattern to it, or is it like just dynamically there is a sudden surge of 1,000 users, and the other instant it just goes down to around 2 or 3. So the policies and the intelligence systems are in place to detect the abnormal flow of traffic. Then diversion is like in diversion, what really happens is that all the traffic that is coming to the particular server, it's being diverted through smaller. Uh, okay, I'll just give you a better example of Google itself. Okay, so Google is not just one server. So Google has a replica of its main server across different continents as well. So in India, so in Asia Pacific, there might be 10 servers. In like in regions other than Asia Pacific, for example, Australia, China, North America, and so on. So there might be different small servers of Google, like all the replicas of the main server. So what really happens is the mail server ensures that all the replicas have similar type of data stored on them. So what happens is I'll start pinging the main Google server. For example, if it's in California, I'll start pinging it. But what happens in diversion is my requests are being diverted into the different replicas. So that is how diversion and detection start happening at the same time. That it starts detecting the abnormal traffic. At the same time, it diverts it, so that one particular server doesn't really face the brunt of the number of requests being coming to it. So detection and diversion sort of go hand in hand. So at the same time, over the years, filtering has also improved, and this is exactly where AI is also being leveraged. That is to identify the kind of traffic coming to the servers. For example, again, if it's a Google server and somebody wants to search for some illicit content, etc. So the Google already knows what kind of content he's searching for. He can filter it, like Google can filter it, Google can divert it. It can also detect which system requested such certain information and so on. So, for example, if you might have come across some information that our government asked Facebook to deliver us some information or asked Twitter to give us some data, etc. So that is exactly what the government wants, because all these systems already do the filtering, diversion, and detection part. And analysis is that almost all the Fortune 500 companies are experts at, and that is how to identify what's happening across their network. So you can see how Facebook does it, how WhatsApp might do it, how Google might do it, how all the prominent services out there might do it. So they are analyzing all the different logs, or how filtering has to be done, or what kind of requests and data is traveling across their platforms. So man in the middle is not really a prominent attack these days, but it is something similar to something similar to phishing. So phishing could be somewhat an analogy within man in the middle. So you can take it to be that way. So what really happens is that within man in the middle, you can say that okay. So when as per the recent communication across the government, you might have seen that government was asking data from Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter, and so on, right? So what government really wanted to do is, government wanted to be somewhat like a man in the middle. So for example, given this platform, so let's just say I'm talking to some person A, okay, and what the government wants is, government wants to know that what exactly am I talking about with person A. So the whole communication channel, what it actually has to, like, what the whole communication channel, what exactly it has to do is that I will send a message to A, but prior to that message reaching A, it has to pass through the server. It's probably maintained and replicated or hacked or managed by the government, and then it passes on to A. So what really happens is, what really happens is the government will snoop on the kind of information that is being passed. The data is not encrypted anymore because they can really comprehend and read what happens, and that is how the government can also keep a tab on who you are, what you do, and what actions are happening. So sometime back there was a request from government to WhatsApp that kindly decrypt certain information for us, etc. So that is why WhatsApp took a stand that you cannot just come in the middle and keep requesting information, because government cannot do it themselves, for the same reason that the government cannot break the encryption, because obviously it's a high-end technology that is being leveraged there. So that is why government had requested such information from WhatsApp. I have an idea about it just because some of my friends are within WhatsApp working on it. So I just have an intuitive idea around it. Could be a different agenda altogether, not a topic for today, but you just get an idea about what man in the middle might mean, like just snooping on the kind of information passing from one person to the other. So drive-by download is something that all the students and professors and almost everybody on a day-to-day basis is subjected to. So what really happens is some of us might want to download some research papers or books in the form of PDFs and so on. So you go to the websites, it says that click on the particular link to download the same. So once you download that, it's going to say that once it's installed, probably install this particular software, it will download the PDF. Some people unconsciously do that. At the same time, if you click on the link, the PDF is downloaded, and it is not really in the form of a PDF. It's some weird folder structure or something like that, right? So that is again when malware has been tried to be when malware is being thrown on your system. So if by any chance you clicked on it, then unfortunately your system is really compromised. So you should think about doing some quick scan, or going for a trial period for one of the antiviruses and getting your system scanned, right? But this is something pretty much common. So think before you're just going to any random website to download papers, because there is a reason why papers are available across journals, or why you have to subscribe to them. Because if somebody had to give it out for free, then obviously there has to be some consequences. And malvertising is something on the similar lines of drive-by download also. So only thing is it happens through the channel of advertisement. So for example, by any chance you click on a URL and it takes you to a new tab on your browser, and it says, okay, you have won a lottery or you've won something like that, etc. And if you further click on it, or you try to click on cancel, okay, or whatever you try to do, that is malvertising it. As soon as you're not able to close it within time, so it will try to download things, or it might try to infect your system. And in 40 to 50% of the cases, it's really successful in doing that. So again, coming back to the previous question of how to avoid malware being installed in a system, just be cautious about what kind of URLs you visit. So here's just an example, like how both of them work. So that is, a user goes to a particular website, it has some advertisements or a link. You click on it, either it asks you to download something, or it takes you to a web advertisement. And by any chance, if you attack it, any chance you click on it, then probably you will be installing malware within your system. So now comes the part where we'll be discussing about how AI and ML is being used across various cyber tools. So I'll just be giving you an idea, like where and what use cases it might be being implemented or integrated within various services. So yes, let's just go ahead with it. So first of all, it is more about how AI can help. So it is pretty much simple. That is, AI cannot just resolve any potential malware or any cyber attack. Okay, so it cannot automatically just do it. It needs to understand what it is. So what really AI requires is that you need to tell it, or you need to share some kind of insights onto what is the right and appropriate way of how the data is supposed to be transferred across one system or one device to the other. How are you supposed to identify within what is spam and what not? How are the logs supposed to be read? And what exactly is the appropriate behavior across digital devices or the network. So once the AI has been taught that, it will devise a pattern, and accordingly it will be able to identify and uh, prevent such cyber attacks and so on. So on the picture you can see on the screen, so here you can see a really structured approach on how the AI system is going to develop different algorithms. So in a supervised fashion, that is something that has been going on for the last 5 to 10 years. So what really happens is we are teaching the AI using a lot of data to identify how malware might look like, what spam might look like, and also teach it what anomalies might be, and then it will evaluate what is the risk score across the particular application, the system, or a particular process. And the trending part in AI is what is down beneath that, and that is it will automatically start aggregating different kind of risks or threats. It will automatically start forming different relationships across processes. For example, if you download this is the action that happens, like the cause and effect, the to and from, all these different relationships. So the AI will automatically start doing that, and based on that, it will be able to help the detection systems made by antivirus software, like the companies devising the antivirus softwares, or for example, uh, the browsers also, like whatever the applications are, all of them are leveraging such tools these days to identify whether there are any anomalies, or you need to classify a user activity. So that is what is happening these days. So where it all really started, like how AI, how the concept of AI was thought about, and around when, like what period was it was suggested that why shouldn't we start using AI to identify such cyber threats and so on? Because 1960s to 1970s is a period when artificial intelligence was the concepts that are being used today or being leveraged to devise high-end algorithms and tools and services leveraging AI. Majority of the work was already done within these years, and it wasn't commercialized because of the computational issues. But given the revolution in in chip design and all these new companies like Nvidia, Arduino, Snapdragon, and so on. So, like all these integrated circuits and so on, like the improvements in all these things that have led to the AI boom in the current timeline. So in 1960s to 1970s, a thought about designing expert systems was floated, wherein the expert systems were nothing but a rule-based system, wherein if I was supposed to read through particular data of logs, like if I have a million row of logs, how am I supposed to read through it? So there is a concept called expert system. So that system knows only how to read logs, but it can read logs far better than any human can. So that is why those are called expert systems in the first place. So those systems have been designed and have been implemented since then. And autonomous systems for various industrial tasks and how different processes can be automated have actually been envisioned since then. And the concept around the current technology, that is deep learning and so on, which leverages neural networks, was well envisioned in early 1970s. So this is the trend that has been followed since 2000s, and even in the early 2000s, I also did my uh, some of my certifications in the cyberspace. So I have also been subjected to these different concepts and how AI is being used to it. So initially, there were some devices that were developed to analyze a victim machine. So I'm not sure that you might recall, but in certain movies, you might have seen that in order to get access to a laptop or some big supercomputer, people actually attach some hardware or hard disk or a small personal device on top of it, right? So those were devices that were designed to extract information or to understand patterns on where anomalies might be, or probably to even install your malware into the main servers or the desktops in order to further fetch information. So in the early 20s, that has been totally replaced by expert systems. So expert system is something like I can just write a line, I can just write few 100, 200 lines of code, and I can uh, like it can be called as an expert system, because what I will do is I will teach it to identify uh, how many times I go to Google within my network. So that expert system would be not even Google. So what I'll do is I'll be designing a system that identifies how many times do I press the enter key, and then the request is sent to Google or any other website for further, for further showing me the details on the web page, right? So the code that I have designed will understand my usage, will understand as to what kind of websites do I generally go to, and based on my activity, it can start predicting that even if I don't use my system, and as soon as as soon as I'm live on the network, like it will know because I'm on the network. My tool will already know that I'm live, so it will keep predicting. So obviously, the predictions will change as and when I start pressing different buttons or keypad and key on the keypad. So for example, if I on a daily basis I go to 10 websites, and I always type a 10 and then I press enter, so it will make a prediction that 10 times I'm going to press my enter key, and that will keep on changing, right? So that is how expert systems are. And at the same time, uh, okay, so the next one is more towards behavioral modeling. So as initially mentioned, that AI these days is not about writing association rules or asking it towards designing a tool, or designing a system wherein you can give it task specific instructions. So what AI does these days is it will try to know more about you, something similar to what I mentioned in the uh, the password the password hacking uh, slide that I initially mentioned about. So in that, so leveraging the same concept mentioned there about how dictionaries are used on the same fashion, even behavioral modeling is there. That is, it will identify what kind of user activity is there. It will identify what kind of websites you visit, or what kind of websites you visit, or how do you write certain messages on different social media platforms, be it Facebook, or what is your thought process when you write your emails, or what kind of information do you write on your documents, presentations, and so on. Like the possibilities are endless. So the AI performs the behavioral modeling of what all activities you might have done and comes up with predictions around it. And at the same time, behavioral economics is also there. Then vulnerability detection is there. So as previously mentioned, I was saying that the threat landscape is there. AI is being leveraged to understand things from that data corpus. So what happens in the vulnerability detection, like the 0-day detection, is that 0-day is, for example, if Microsoft released a new version of Windows, like Windows 11 came into being, and it released the software for the public, right? So the team that developed that particular software already know that these are the bugs that have been identified. But if we do not take care of them, then people out there who have already tested the system or are already devising ways on how we can hack into such kind of a system might have found those loopholes, and they might have designed certain AI scripts or might have designed some automated tasks that can leverage that particular loophole and get access to the user's information, right? So that is 0 day. That is, it can just happen anytime. So all these teams need to be prepared, and for that, all these companies, be it the hacker or the source that is making such software, all these teams are leveraging AI in order to identify what all possibilities are there for a 0 day attack and what all areas are there where this could happen. At the same time, secure user authentication is there, like there's captcha, then there's like OTP and others are pretty much standard, like it's just an automated task. So secure authentication is your biometrics. For example, in your Apple devices, you could actually use face recognition for like it actually leverages LiDAR to get access to your facial coordinates and landmarks. In Android devices, it basically uses facial recognition algorithms and so on, right? So those are somewhat AI algorithms that are being used on a daily basis. And data classification is pretty much simple. Just open up your devices, you can actually see the data being segregated. So if it's messages, it has segregated the type of messages. So for example, if you're getting messages about bank statements, you can see that there is a thread that happened, thread of messages. That is, if there's a particular set of transactions, then all the transactions are clubbed together. If it's just an alert from the bank, those kind of messages are clubbed in separately. So the system already knows and has identified how the data has to be classified. So think about it, like AI is everywhere already. At the same time, AI has also been used in malware detection, that is to identify what are the possibilities of malware being installed within your system. So all the hard work by Microsoft and different antivirus softwares goes into the fact that they need to identify all the patterns and they need to identify the digital signatures of all these different components. For example, if I download a particular software, if it does not have for example, if it does not have a decent signature that is recognized, then it will probably be classified as malware, right? So the AI systems are being trained to identify what kind of softwares might be considered as malware, what not, what kind of messages are supposed to be flagged, and so on. So similarly, botnet detection is there, and if your system is compromised, then there has to be some kind of alert, right? So hacking incident forecasting is there. In fraud detection, it is more towards finding anomalies, and in hacking, fraud detection, it's about anomalies. In spam filter applications, it's more towards understanding how are you going to segregate different information, whether it was from a reliable source or not. That is stage one. Next is the kind of information that is being sent to you, whether it is spam or not. For example, there could be some mails, like some of us might be receiving mails in our promotions or updates or different. Okay, so in the Gmail client also, you might see that Google has started classifying your data as updates, promotions, and inbox, right? Primary updates and promotion. Then you can do more. So Google will automatically identify what kind of mails or what kind of information is to be classified that way. Similarly, they will also know what kind of data within that information that has been sent to you, like what kind of text implies or what kind of text lies within that spam ecosystem. At the same time, the AI system will also help you understand network intrusion and prevention these days. So, for example, if I'm at my location, I usually leave my place on a day-to-day basis. Like, for example, like between 10 to 12, I usually leave my place and I go to some cafe, or I just go out somewhere for a drive or whatever it is. So within that time span, if there's an anomalous activity within my network, so the AI systems are prepped to identify that. So majority of them, like I probably would reduce on the time here. So majority of them work primarily on identifying different anomalies across time, across data in the sense across time, across the kind of textual data that is there, across pictorial data. At the same time, it goes through tiniest of the details based on seconds, milliseconds, or digital signatures, and so on. Right. So majority of them lie in the similar space. So designing AI solutions on all these lines is not as hard, but having accurate systems is something that requires expertise. So now comes to the case study part. So at Alpha, we have actually accomplished in developing a solution that leverages all these different aspects together. And here I go with the case study. So the name of the product is called iTrickCare, and the applications are wholly and solely be going to be used across these three domains, that is for HR recruitment, healthcare, and counterterrorism. And for counterterrorism, I'm sure reading the previous pointers, you might have understood what all components am I mentioning. So here is just a small gist of what all activity the platform comprises of, and this happens behind the scenes. Okay, so you wouldn't even know this is happening, and this script is deployed within the system. So just go through the demo. So right now we refresh it, it's live and running in the system. Okay. So what the system is currently doing is, it is performing emotion detection of the particular user who's handling this platform. So so the whole process is refreshed. So it knows when you're happy, when you have a surprised reaction, are you disgusted or angry, and it all happens across milliseconds. So you can see the time differences, right? Time differences and date. At the same time, it also identifies if there's any anomalous activity within your device. So network intrusion, key logging, everything is there. Timestamp, anomalies. So it's also detecting the activities and so on. If you want to know more about it, I'll be happy to connect with you all. So this is the website. Probably you can just fill in the contact form if you wish to connect and know more about it, or if you wish to explore any possibilities of being a part of our organization for further getting deeper into such concepts. You can do that. So that's more about it from my end. So I'm open to any questions if they're there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhatnagar, for addressing this very interesting topic. If you may allow, can I ask you a few questions from the audience?
Sure.
Okay. Firstly,
do you mind if I stop my screen share?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Perfect. Yes.
Yes. So firstly, one of our participants is asking, does AI bias affect cybersecurity?
Yeah, definitely it does, because as I mentioned, that these days when it's pretty much trendy that everyone wants to use AI and see where it's going to like how it's going to be applied within the cyberspace as well. So if it is not being subjected to the right set of data, and the data that you're providing is highly biased, it's actually going to make wrong predictions. 100% true. So biases do affect, the biases will reflect on the kind of predictions made by the AI. That is why I was saying it's highly expensive, time consuming, and requires high expertise if an AI system has to be made within this space, because data accuracy is something that is very important, because the slightest of the mishaps is going to cost the individual a lot.
Okay, thank you so much. My next question is that what are the different areas where AI has a great impact?
The most impact where I have seen made by AI is within the healthcare sector. So within the pandemic itself, like all of us have seen that the vaccines came out that fast and quickly only because the AI systems were in place. It's not that they were already predicting something like that will happen. Although research was already going on similar composition, like on the viruses of similar composition, but again, they couldn't have produced vaccines on that larger scale or done their trials on that larger scale if AI wasn't there in the picture. So the healthcare segment or the domain of healthcare is something that is highly impacted, and whether the systems are biased, non-biased, again, it's going to have very high consequences on the similar industry. The next industry after healthcare that I feel is on the similar lines is the defense. So we've seen, uh, you know, like a few months back, there's a lot of, talk about countries leveraging drones and how AI is being used for drone warfare, and how China is also, more like an AI uh, an AI superpower, and how AI is being leveraged across military domains and so on. So these two areas are almost hand in hand, but I'll stick to the healthcare sector.
Okay, thank you so much. My next question is that how AI can be used in order to curb the cyber crimes in banking sector.
First of all, okay, so I'll be explicit about it. The banking industry is never in favor of AI systems because they believe that having human workforce and humans identifying cyber threats and going through their logs would be a better opinion. And like if you ask me, they need to be more open-minded towards accepting that AI could actually be giving them better insights as to where their banking systems might be lacking or what kind of flaws are there in the systems. I can just give you a vague example that simply, I won't name the bank, but this happened back in the UK. So the bank didn't accept when like one of the companies, they were a startup. They said, we are developing a de-risking software which leverages AI. So once you deploy it on your banking system and everything, it will help you understand. It will help you, uh, uh, optimize your processes, and it could be across insurance, it could be across loans and so on, like how things are supposed to be processed in that direction. Okay, so uh, it was analyzing the cash flow of different people. It was identifying how information is processed across the whole banking software that was being used by the bank, how transactions are happening. So what the system eventually identified is that the bank actually ended up losing almost $5 to $6 million yearly, just because there was a bug in the system which was calculating how much amount is supposed to be transferred from a user's account to the bank and vice versa. Like for example, there are transactional costs, right? So the system that the bank had in place was evaluating it was not evaluating it in an appropriate fashion. Like they had some other things in place, or they were using Excel to modify what kind of transactions are supposed to happen or how they're supposed to change different values. That there was a manual intervention, and the Excel sheet that was being leveraged was corrupted, and the bank didn't accept that. Okay, so this was just one instance. I just give you an example that this thing is there. It's quite possible that many other banks might be doing certain things, or they might even not know that such thing is happening within their tech stack, like the whole technology that they've developed. So AI systems definitely, if incorporated within the banking sector to understand different patterns, usage, of like transactions based on different timestamps and so on. If that is implemented, I'm sure they can give some positive results. I'm not denying that human intervention might be needed at one point to, give it a yes or a no. Like we cannot just give AI the permission to be transacting on your behalf. But again, to design a system to filter such things or something like that, I really believe AI should be given a chance.
Okay, thank you so much for answering this question, Mr. Bhatnagar. My last question is that what all are the future cyber crimes and offenses one can commit using AI-based technology? Like what risks does specifically AI possesses, and how AI can be used as a weapon?
See, using AI as a weapon is a really choice of your mind, actually. So, like I just initially showed you a fake video, which was in a crude form, right? So you can actually see that I can, like the AI can start impersonating me as well at one point. So in the coming time, impersonating an individual would probably be one of the trending, cyber attacks that is happening across the globe, because it can actually replicate how your retina looks like. I can actually do that, right? At the same time, if it's your thumbprint, the AI can actually replicate how your thumbprint looks like based on pattern recognition and so on, right? So, like all these things are imminent. Like it's highly possible, and it will happen at one point. I'm sure about it. At the same time, there are some forums in place across the world, and majority of the companies who are developing such AI that can be sort of talked about it as in working on the gray lines. For example, if you tip off a few people, you are in the black line. If you are not tipping off anybody and you're not using it commercially, you're on the white line. So some of the companies that are designing some gray area solutions, all of them these days are becoming a part of those communities online, the forums, and they're explicitly mentioning that we are a part of such community. We are not into these activities, but if someone wants to use a solution, he explicitly has to watermark it, that the technology developed by this company who is a part of this forum, etc., has provided me with this solution. The documentation has to be enough and so on. But leveraging AI for hacking purposes and different cyber threats, I believe there's a massive scope. So me talking about what all possibilities are there, I'll just simply have one word, that is it's endless. So it's more up to you what you can comprehend. You dream about one cyber attack, it's possible it might happen 2 years down the line, or the very next day.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatnagar. It was a very interesting and very informative session, and we all really loved it. We are honored that you became a part of our awareness course. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much to the organizers. Thank you so much to the audience also.
Thank you for having me, everyone, and thank you, Megha and Akash, for this opportunity, especially. So nice talking to you all, and hope to be here soon, sometime in the future.
Yes, sure.